Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Aubrey Marais, Management Executive at First Digital, part of the First Technology Group. We're excited to host today's event and give you a deep dive into amazing new technology from Microsoft that will revolutionize your data projects. As a leading Microsoft data and AI partner, we are delighted to present Microsoft Fabric to you today. Being from a data engineering background myself, I have first-hand experience of the many pieces required for an end-to-end data ingestion and reporting project. Microsoft Fabric is a modern methodology and toolset focused on the easy integration, ingestion, process, and reporting on data from various sources. In today's session, Craig and Gavin will explain the logic behind the Microsoft Fabric methodology, direct the different parts of the stack, and conclude today's session with a demo. But before we start, a bit of housekeeping. Today's session will be recorded and the recording will be made available on our YouTube channel. Details will be shared after the event. Due to the size of the audience, everybody will be muted and we ask that you post any questions in a Q&A window. Questions asked will be answered by Craig and Gavin at the end of the session. Right, just quickly a quick overview of First Digital. First Digital builds out many value-added services across various technology verticals. We focus on four main areas: custom software development in our innovation team, automation and integration for low-code development in our automation team, data analytics team very much focused on the Microsoft stack, and our digital workplace team focused on value-added services mostly around the Microsoft 365 Power Platform, Microsoft Viva, and Microsoft Syntex. In the next part of the session, Craig will explain what Fabric is and show you a demo to explain the rationale behind Microsoft Fabric. Craig is a senior data consultant in our data and AI team, and Gavin is our commercial manager in the same team. Together, they will be facilitating the Q&A session before concluding the webinar. Let's see this in action. Without further delay, Craig, over to you.
Thank you very much, Aubrey, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for sparing some time to listen to us. Let's start off with Microsoft Fabric. This will be a high-ish level presentation, starting with what is Microsoft Fabric. Well, let's start with why is Fabric so awesome. It's because it is an all-in-one analytics solution that covers everything from data science, real-time analytics, and business intelligence. With other solutions, you often have to work within multiple environments to do more than the simplest of tasks. With Fabric, you don't need to piece together different services. Instead, you have a highly integrated, end-to-end, and easy-to-use product that caters to the needs of your data engineers, analysts, and your business users. All the Fabric services rely on one lake, a tenant-wide managed data lake that we will discuss shortly. Fabric is offered as a software as a service, and it brings together new and exciting components from Power BI, Azure Synapse, and Azure Data Factory into a single integrated environment. Here's a rough sketch of how a typical simple Synapse solution would look. There are several points at which we would need to configure connections to different data sources, both in the source and destination, internally and externally. Each of those connections is a potential pain point in configuring and connecting to it. As I'm sure many of you would know, even the best of connections can be difficult to pass. JSON APIs come to mind. In the last 6 months, I've done 3 web API calls, and each was configured and passed differently. Fabric removes these configuration points and places everything in one lake. All the other tools in Fabric are pre-configured to connect to one lake, and you're going to hear me say that multiple times during this call. Data professionals, report writers, and business users all work within the same workspace, but with different experiences. If circumstances prevent us from creating import pipelines in Fabric, we can also use shortcuts. Shortcuts incorporate external data which can be consumed as if it was natively in one lake. Heard one lake a few times. Let's take a look at it and how it supports Fabric. Fabric is a lake-centric architecture that provides a single integrated data environment for data professionals and business users to collaborate. All the compute workloads are pre-configured to work with one lake as their native store without needing configuration. OneLake is built on top of Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 and is compatible with the same APIs and SDKs as ADLS Gen 2. Data is stored in Delta Parquet format. Delta Parquet stores data in aptly named Parquet files, which, with some extra metadata behind the scenes to facilitate asset transactions and change tracking, amongst other benefits. We can have multiple workspaces sitting on top of OneLake, and these enable distributed ownership and access policies. Each workspace is part of a capacity that is tied to a specific region and is built separately. The various compute engines in Fabric, such as Spark, T-SQL, and analysis services, can run over a single copy of the data without having to duplicate any resources. Business users can build Power BI reports directly on top of OneLake using the new Direct Lake mode in the Analysis Services engine. The Analysis Services engine is what powers BI semantic models. Experiences. This is a really awesome aspect that facilitates your different roles being able to work differently within the same space. They are role and task specific over the toolsets and data available within Fabric. They provide a comprehensive data analytics solution by unifying these roles into a single platform. First up is data engineering, which provides data engineering on a Spark platform and gives us transformation at scale. Secondly, we have data warehouse, which gives us industry-leading SQL performance and scale, and we can use T-SQL to query the Delta Parquet files. Your T-SQL and SQL admin skill sets are transferable to Fabric. Next up is data science. This is where the magic of Azure machine learning and the use of Spark for data wrangling. This is also where we would do our model training and execution tracking, and all of this within a highly scalable environment. Now for real-time analytics, we can query and analyze large volumes of data in real time. It's a simple and easy way to consume streaming data, and for situations that require low query latency, where we're talking seconds or split seconds rather than minutes. Fifth on our lineup is Data Factory. The Data Factory experience combines Power Query and the time-proven Azure Data Factory to move and transform data. Fabric Data Factory is the next generation of Azure Data Factory. There are some minor differences between the two, mostly in naming of components. Your ADF skills are fully transferable to Fabric as well. In fact, last year, one of our team members had to move some ADF pipelines to Fabric. He hadn't even seen Fabric before, and in less than 30 minutes, he was up to speed. And lastly is Power BI. As we all know, Power BI visualizes data to support transforming data to decisions. It is baked into Fabric, so Power BI natively connects to OneLake. Spend your time creating data experiences rather than configuring connections. We also have Copilot available in Fabric. It's being rolled out in stages in Fabric in various regions and at various times. It can help us in data science and engineering by providing an AI-enhanced toolset to support data professionals, and comes with code completion. You can automate routine tasks and it provides industry standard templates that allow our engineers to focus on adding value rather than fiddling with code. Data Factory gets an AI-enhanced toolset that supports professional and citizen data consumers with intelligent code generation to transform data, and it can also be used to generate code explanations that help you better understand complex tasks. Then finally, Power BI. Copilot comes in the form of an AI that allows you to create reports automatically by selecting a topic or by providing Copilot with a prompt on a particular topic. A useful functionality is that it can generate a summary for a report page and generate synonyms for better QA. So a lot of stuff that we have seen previously in Power BI, just polished a bit more within Fabric. Now the fun part comes. Cost. Fabric's primary cost is capacity units. These are categorized with the F SKUs. Between F8 and F1024, we also have the related Power BI SKUs, which show the relevant, the quality and the same functionality as Power BI. To share content and collaborate in Microsoft Fabric, your organization needs to have an F or P capacity license and at least one per user license. Lake storage comes in at $0.0274 a gig a month, and we will probably see bandwidth charges coming in 2024. I would suggest you spend some time working out which SKU is right for your requirements, both currently and 1 year from now. Once you've settled on a SKU that you think will fit your needs, you can get a 1 year reservation, which takes off approximately 41% of the price. It's one of the nice things of Azure. Please note that any prices you see are subject to the region hosting the resources, and there can be quite a bit of variance at times. And even the simplest of licensing can be a complicated process. So please feel free to contact us, info@firsttech.digital, or your account manager to explore your options. A quick comparison of costs. Synapse against Fabric. For like comparisons, we're coming in at $1,976 for Synapse and $288 for Fabric per month. Both examples hosted in the East US, both with 24/7 uptime, both with 1 terabyte storage. But Synapse has Power BI as an external tool, whereas Fabric has it as an internal tool that's integrated into it. In Synapse, connection to Lake storage requires configuration. In Fabric, it's already pre-configured for you and available to all your Fabric tools. Synapse, you need to work in multiple environments and tools. Fabric is an end-to-end environment, fully integrated. Here's a quick overview of the underlying quote that provided us with those previous details. Synapse just has so many things to configure that I ended up giving up. And Fabric has 2 configurables, or 2 choices to make: your capacity units and your estimated storage. Synapse just has too many configurable parts with associated costs and moving pieces for most companies, especially small to medium enterprises. And I cannot emphasize enough how valuable Fabric can be to an SME, both in cost, performance, and availability. So, why Fabric? We can scale data and analytics across your organization while reducing costs and optimizing existing data and management tools. Makes data more accessible to technical and non-technical users securely. Move from siloed data to integrated unified data and governance. Move from a technical platform that requires advanced analytic skills to insights that are accessible and scale with ease. You can leverage a powerful solution with flexibility in cost and usage to improve time to value. You can also use native integration with Microsoft Graph Data Connect and Dataverse to transform and analyze all your Microsoft data. Increase adoption through seamless sign-up, onboarding, and access to data. Fabric will get you to market while your competitors using Synapse will still be configuring their environments. Okay, Gavin, I think you have something to add.
Thanks, Craig. I think before I go forward, I think the next poll I would like to ask is, what is the correct pronunciation? Is it Synapse or is it Synapse? Because I forever call it Synapse and you going Synapse is just something that just keeps bugging me. Anyway, let's go and discuss the poll, the first poll results. We had 93 responses, so thank you very much for that. You would have seen that the second poll has just jumped up on the screen. So while I'm talking about the first one, would you mind just reading and answering the second poll? As I was saying, the first poll results, the bulk of the audience was sitting at a maturity of level 2, 3, and 4, which makes absolute sense. Because most people would have undertaken the data journey already, but there are so many stumbling blocks to prevent us from getting to a level 5 on the maturity scale. And a lot of times what is preventing us is the complexity of the tools and the integrations that is required to get that level of maturity. And I think that fits in 100% with where Fabric is trying to get us, is the simplicity of the installation and the use to be able to leverage the technology a lot more effective. So yes, that result of the first poll really does make sense. And I do think that there's a lot of value that a person can get directly out of Fabric. But Craig, in all honesty, I know you techie guys like complicated solutions. You know, almost the more complicated, the happier you are. But for simple people like me on the business side, I like to keep it simple. I like to be able to plug in and just have something working. So in all honesty, Craig, how easy is Fabric to use? And let's be honest, is it really as simple as what you've made it out to say?
Okay, Gab, how about we do a quick exercise where we ingest some data, process it, and create a report. And so we start off, I've already signed into Fabric, and I've created a warehouse already in the workspace. Just had to cheat a little bit to save time. The warehouse takes about 30 seconds to create, and then it's ready to run. So once we've got our factory, our warehouse done and our workspace done, let's look at ingesting some simple data into our warehouse. We go to warehouse, new data pipeline. Just give it a little bit of a moment. And we shall call this load customer data. There we go. Our pipeline is just getting provisioned quickly. When it comes up, you'll notice it looks similar to the ADF you're familiar with, but also slightly different. That is due to it being next generation. And for data source, let us look for, let's close you down. Let's add pipeline activity rather, copy data. Simple copy data task, as we've seen in ADF and in Synapse. And let's call it CD load dimension data. Here we go. Then we'll pop over to source, external. We'll create a new connection in Azure Blob Storage. We're going to steal some Microsoft data here. And that connection is to the blob storage. We'll create a new connection. Call it world waters sample. And they're giving this away freely, so we'll use anonymous authentication, but we do have a number of authentication methods available to us. Account key and SaaS being the really cool, interesting ones, and organizational accounts and service principals are more for use within our internally than external users. There we go. We can create that. Once that's created, we will just need to do a few more tweaks on the configuration. We are going to get from a file path from that connection, and it will be in container sample data in directory wide world imported to DW. Luckily, I know all of this stuff off by heart. And we will be getting the dimension customer parquet file. So this file, we're reading a static file right now, but that could be a dynamic file. That could be a folder of files. That could be a database, a SQL database, MySQL database. It could be a Synapse tool. Anything is available to us. And make sure that the format is set to OK. And then we look at our destination. So we're going to be bringing this data into our workspace, and we're going to bring it into our data warehouse, which is called Wide World Importers. Then we need to let this run, enter manually. We're going to bring it into DBO dimension customer. Then we will say run, save and run. This is where we cross fingers. This is where the first error usually pops up. And I think we'll give it about 30 seconds just to spin up and start fetching the data. There we go, we're on 13 seconds. Oh, failed. There we go, it tells us quite easily what our problems are. Invalid name, DBO dimension customer. Go back here. And Craig forgot to say auto create a table. You get, even the troubleshooting is easy.
You done that just for me, didn't you, Craig?
Yeah, absolutely. It was perfectly on purpose. Okay, DBO. Dimension customer. There are obviously very many other configurations we can make. We can do mappings. We can bring in variables so we can make our pipeline somewhat dynamic. Don't be like Craig and go too dynamic, because that kind of falls flat. It becomes difficult when other people can't follow and you can't even follow your own code. It should be done in a moment. Also bear in mind that running interactively is always slower than running in batch or on triggers, because it's got to manage all the debugging infrastructure as well that underlies your interactive session. There we go. We're lucky enough to have now completed successfully. Let us go back to worldwide importers and yes, from a new SQL query. Let's take a look at the data that's in there so Gavin can know for a fact that I've actually imported the stuff legitimately. Let's start with select star from dbo dot we'll come back to that in a moment. Let's create a few tables to work with, and then we'll transform data into something even more interesting. So let us create table 1. And if we look schemas, DBO, dimension customer, and dimension city, and fact sale. So there's all of our useful tables. Pick top 100. There's the schema for our city. Let's see what's in dimension customer. There you go, Gavin. That's the data we imported from the Microsoft blob. You happy that that part was easy enough, even with Craig doing it?
Yeah, I do feel that was quite simple. Obviously, I probably would have wanted to see this more in a Power BI format. I'm assuming it's pretty simple like this as well to import that into Power BI if we need it to be.
We'll get to Power BI in a moment.
Okay.
Okay, now we've got 3 tables, but 2 of them are empty. So I think we should do something about that. So let's close these, because you need plenty of dimensions to create nice Power BI reports. So we're going to use a copy into to copy from blob storage into our table. So this is a SQL version of what the ingestion that I did earlier. No more, no less. And we're running 116,000 records. That was pretty good, eh, Gavin? 9 seconds.
Yes. A little bit quicker than what I would do it.
And let's get some made up sales in that we can work with. Gavin, how much do you trust me? Do you trust me enough that I don't have to show you the contents of those tables now, or should I?
No, show me, because I'm not a very trusting guy. While you're doing this, I see we did have a question come in, Craig.
Yeah.
The question is, did this come from a SQL Server database?
No. This is all sitting on top of the Delta Parquet files, and the source was Parquet files in blob storage. There's a SQL interface to the data lake, so your SQL skills, both querying and admin, basic admin, they transfer into Fabric seamlessly. You might find some of your more advanced stuff, maybe common table expressions, things like that, might not be as usable, but for basic and intermediate usage, your skills will transfer one shot.
Perfect. Thank you.
Then we have, there's your city data, Gavin.
Okay.
All 116 odd records of it. And let's take a look. Back sales is still running and it's finished now. So let us see what's in our sales table. There you go, Gav. There's all of our sales data. It's the last time you'll doubt me, isn't it? Or am I being overly optimistic?
Overly optimistic, but yeah, you took a step in the right direction.
Nice. Okay, so we've now ingested data with the pipeline. We've ingested data from blob storage directly with Transact SQL. Let's transform some of that data now into something a bit more interesting. So we will create a stored procedure that basically creates our aggregate table and inserts values into it based on various joins and groupings and orderings. So we will run that to create the stored procedure. And there's a stored procedure we just created. And then we can execute him. That will just run for a short moment.
So while they're running, Craig, if I may just intervene, I've just got a couple of questions again. So let's try and handle this just quickly. Does the SQL allow for merge?
Does it allow for merge? Looks like it does, yes.
But still to be tested and proven, but yeah, it looks like it accepted the command.
Yeah.
And then on-premise SQL Server DB, do they need to go through the data gateway as well?
Yes, they will have to go through the data gateway. The data gateway is what facilitates the communication between cloud and the on-prem, or even possibly private clouds. Anything that needs to go do data transmission needs to go through the data gateway.
Okay. Nigel, we'll get to your question again shortly, but let's just let Craig carry on with his demo so far. Okay.
Okay, and then to answer your previous question, the merge statement is not yet supported, but will be in the near future.
Thank you.
There's our aggregate table. Let's just look for data. There we go. So we've managed to group everything together. And now's the part that Gavin's been waiting for the whole time.
Yes.
Let us go to model, not Cindy Crawford, data model. Mind out the go to Gavin.
You're showing
And
your age there, Craig.
Then we can start trying to work some of this through. There's a lot going on here. Let's make it a bit more friendly. There we go. So we've got a whole bunch of tables going on here with fact sales. Let's get things a bit neater here. Okay, so for fact sales, we will be combining that with, is it here? Misbehaving. Just bear with me, please. There we go. So fact sale, we're going to combine city key to dimension city. On city key. This will be a many-to-one single direction, and we're going to assume referential integrity. If we click here, we can find out exactly what that means. And that means you can make your queries more efficient because it's going to pretend that those two sources are have referential integrity, and rather than having to check it every time, it'll just go through and assume that and process that. Will give you an error if referential integrity is not applicable. So that's a nice simple one for now. Let's drop him. Have to stay there. All right, so let us see here now. We've created our relationship. Then we can home, new reports. And we'll build a simple column chart here because I'm not a report designer.
Sure.
Go for function over form. On data pane, let's expand fact sales. And let's look for profit. That's going to create us automatically a simple little chart to start off with. And then let's see what we can do to make it a bit more useful. We created a relationship to dimension city. And with that, we will look at it by sales territory. And we'll add that to the x-axis. And there we go. So from source to report, Gavin, was that simple enough?
Yeah, it was. Even for an old guy like me, that works.
And for those of you that have really creative report creators, this integration will make their lives so much easier that you'll get so much more out of them, and they'll be happier employees as well. All right, Gav, back to you.
Yeah, just something you've mentioned quite a few times, the different experiences. And I know some people have very clear roles that they fulfill within their team, you know, whether they're an analyst or a data scientist. Can you maybe just show me what you actually meant by that, what these experiences actually
All
look like?
right, with pleasure. So the experiences are basically to make you a bit more efficient. As a data engineer, I don't really need to see Power BI stuff. For a Power BI person, a report creator, they don't really need to see the ETLs and the pipelines. So if we start with data engineering, won't save that report for now. Here we see we've got the things we can create: Lakehouse, Spark notebooks, Spark job definitions, pipeline. So this is all the sort of things that an engineer would be using. If we go from there to data science, you'll see it's changed ever so slightly. Here they'll be working with ML, machine learning models, experiments, notebooks as well, and so on. If we move on to
And this comes out of the box like that, Craig, is not something that I would have to configure.
Not at all. Anything. This is as designed by Microsoft. Data warehouse has Microsoft, has warehouse, but less of the options than data engineering. And real-time analytics gives you access to your KQL databases and queries and event streams, so that you can query your streaming data in bulk. We go up a little bit further. We've got Data Factory, which is literally just limited to ETL pipelines. And finally, the last one of interest is Power BI. And you see the main feature of the Power BI, because they're special creatures, report writers. They don't need too many choices, just new report. And then yes, lastly, there's Data Activator, which is relatively newly enabled. So I haven't actually had much of a chance to do with it, but this is for wringing out as much value from your data as possible.
And then I'm just assuming the obvious, that this is all security controlled, you know, by roles or something along those lines.
This has roles-based authority, access control, and you can go down to various object levels. Obviously, a simpler security plan is usually more efficient, but not too simple. That's something that would have to be discussed on a case-by-case basis to make sure that the solution suits the client's needs. Some guys don't need as much security. There can be more broader access from internal, whereas others need to segregate by team and make sure each team cannot interfere with the other. But yes, that's all possible.
Okay, so I just want to get to Nigel's question quickly, if that's okay, Craig.
Yeah.
He's asking if Fabric has some sort of an equivalent for SQL Server replication, where the database that they want to replicate is an on-premise SQL Server.
That one will just take me a moment. I haven't actually thought of it. They do have, Azure does have the standard. So if you think of replication from a emergency point of view, yes, it can be replicated, but from an operational replication, so from an operation, it's not really operational databases that we're dealing with. So replication often, not always, but often is used to provide a reporting service access to data without affecting your production system. Whereas with Fabric, we're already importing from the production system. So from that point of view, no. But from a disaster recovery point of view, most definitely, it's a fundamental part of Azure.
So he was asking from a transactional point of view, transactional replication.
No, it's not a transactional system or process. This is a reporting and data management process. You're not going to have apps writing directly to Fabric, but they'll be writing to another database that you're going to be pulling into Fabric. So you'll still be doing your replication on the source database.
Okay. Tilo, we did see your message. I just want to kind of go in and discuss the results of the second poll, if everyone's okay with that. I just need to kind of find them again. There we go. Just got them. So the results were quite interesting from the 71 responses. It still seems as if the major technology that is getting used at the moment is SSIS, obviously because it works, and then Azure file storage. But what is very, very promising is the fact that people are already investing some time and effort into the Microsoft Fabric. So it will be awesome to, even if you just put it in the comment section, it will awesome to see what kind of feedback you have from your use on Fabric thus far. If there's been any questions, concerns, any benefits, I think that could be quite an interesting train to follow. But obviously, the investment in the Synapse side has been a little bit slow, potentially because of the pricing side of things, maybe because of the complexity. But I'm pretty sure that Fabric is going to consume a lot of the Synapse market as we go forward. So thanks very much for everybody who answered that poll for us. What I do want to do now is I just want to open up it to the general Q&A, if that's okay. And while we're waiting for any questions to come through, we're just going to go with Tilo's question quickly was, how does this integrate into DevOps and SSMS?
DevOps itself, I'm not too sure. But your pipelines can be like with traditional ADF. Can't believe we're already saying traditional ADF. Can integrate with GitHub and presumably with your source controls in DevOps. That's basically GitHub anyway. So you're not going to be able to relate directly back to tasks, but you can activate source control at least. And you might be able to connect it to DevOps, but definitely GitHub.
Okay. So here's one of the questions. It's one of my questions that does concern me a little bit is if I've already invested in Power BI or Synapse or whatever the case may be, and now I'm interested in Fabric, what happens to that investment that I've already put into the other technologies?
All right, so your Power BI investment will transfer in the form of the licenses. So your P and all of your Power BI SKUs will allow you access and grant you permissions and abilities in Fabric. So that will be an almost one-to-one transferal. When it comes to Synapse, there is definitely an upgrade path from Synapse to Fabric because it is both running on ADF fundamentally. You could use things like shortcuts to incorporate your Synapse data into Fabric natively and then slowly migrate your pipelines over. Microsoft has got an upgrade path to go from Fabric, from Synapse to Fabric. But I've found in my team that it's actually generally for the simpler pipelines, it's easier to just rewrite them. That actually goes a lot quicker because the amount of reconfiguring you have to do anyway kind of takes away the benefit.
Okay. And then I heard a rumor somewhere, I just want to know if this is true, that with Fabric, there is free storage that comes with it. Is that true?
I actually spent about 2 hours yesterday looking for that. And you get free storage with the trial version. But when you move over to capacity units or like premium licensing, I cannot see anything regarding free basic storage.
Okay. Okay, here's a very complicated question. So I'm going to read it slowly just so I can understand it from Stefan. It says, would it be beneficial for a company who leverages Power Platform, so apps and automate, to use a data warehouse as a data source instead of a Dataverse Azure storage?
That would depend on the circumstances. Generally, I mean, Dataverse is a native part of Fabric as well, and you can connect with there relatively seamlessly. My own personal preference would be to keep everything internally with a warehouse, but again, you've got to consider the unique circumstances that even two small businesses in the same industry will have different priorities and different needs. So for that, the best would be to get in touch and let us, set up a call and let us have a chat.
Okay, Stefan, I hope that'll out. There we go. There's a thumbs up. Thanks very much for that. And another one, if the data warehouse that was created in Fabric, does that have the ability to link to source control?
That's not that I'm aware of, no. You'd be wanting to basically store the schema. So there would be ways to do it, but as far as I can tell, there's no native connection between the two.
Okay, thanks very much. And then there's a question about what is the Fabric Capacity Metrics app? Do you know anything about that? Have you played with it? Do you know where it fits in?
No, I haven't. If it's something that explains how capacity units work, then that would be great. But no, I haven't had a chance to deal with that.
And Tobiso's coming in with a sneaky one. A common concern for clients who are looking to migrate onto Fabric is around access control management on workspaces. Can you touch a little bit on a security once workspaces have been created? So basically security around workspaces.
So basically, you can go from, with the role-based access control, we can go from preventing viewing of a specific workspace all the way down to row-level security and everything in between. In some cases, you might not be able to completely remove it. Something might still show up in a list, but you won't be able to interact or drill down on that. That'll be with certain objects, but then when you go down to data and pipelines and all of that, they can be limited to who accesses them.
I've spoken to a few people and they've expressed a little bit of concern that maybe their BI environment is either too small or on the other side of the scale, too large for Microsoft Fabric. So where do you see Fabric being able to answer? At what size would you be able to say Fabric is your answer?
Okay, so it's not a case of your data being too small. It's $288 a month too much for you. If it isn't, then Fabric is good for you. From a point of perspective of being too large, I think there's very few businesses in South Africa and probably the world that would be too large to use Fabric. I'm talking maybe our big retailers might, with all of their transactions, they might be better off in Synapse. But even our big banks, I worked for one of the smaller banks previously, and the amount of data that gets generated, well, a lot, still comfortably would fit within Fabric. So I wouldn't allow this. Think of how big you want to be, not how big you are.
Okay, so it's more from a scaling perspective as
Yes.
to where the limit could potentially be found. Okay,
Yes.
no, that makes sense. So I think unless there's any other questions that would like to come through, or if there's anything else that you would like to touch on, Craig, I think we really have reached the end of our demo and presentation on Fabric. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for everybody who has joined us on this call. We really do appreciate you taking the time to learn about this really interesting technology that I really feel is kind of a revolutionizing step within the BI space, because it seems to cater for everybody out of the box. I mean, there might be the odd exception here and there, but this demo has really showed us where it can be used and in which particular business cases it is going to be very useful in. Just as a reminder, this show has been recorded and will be made available through our relevant platforms. And if you do want to reach out and discuss this a little bit more in detail, please feel free to contact us on the screen there, or go through your AMs, and we'll be happy to set up a call with you. But thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed it. And can everybody please comment on this where possible, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks a lot and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.